Good evening. Pan-Democratic lawmakers have called on Legislative Council President Zhang Yuxing to resign over his decision to halt a filibuster in the chamber. Zhang today defended his controversial move and denied there was any conspiracy behind it to end a marathon debate. Anne-Marie Sim reports.
After taking the unprecedented move of invoking special powers to bring to an end a rambling 33-hour filibuster yesterday, the LegCo president today defended his controversial move.
I still believe that it was the best possible decision for me to take. I believe that I managed to maintain a balance between giving ample opportunity for the minority in the council to express their views and to make whatever is allowed by the rules of procedure to bargain with the government. And at the same time, as President of the Legislative Council, I had a duty to ensure that the council as an institution must function properly.
He also dismissed some lawmakers' accusations that he had stopped the debate on a bill to restrict LegCo by-elections because he was pressured by the government and Beijing's liaison office in Hong Kong.
There was no conspiracy whatsoever. I never discussed with other council members, other legislators, about what I should do, whether I should stop the filibustering or not, because I know that it was bound to be a very controversial issue, whether I decided to stop it or to allow it to go on forever. There must be very strongly conflicting views among the legislators. So I did not believe that consulting my colleagues in the council on that point would be constructive in any way.
But Zhang made it clear that he had asked for advice from the LegCo Secretariat. Lawmakers were back in the chamber this morning to vote on each and every one of the more than 1,300 amendments on the bill that triggered the filibuster. The bill aims to stop legislators who resign from running in elections for 6 months. Still, Zhang couldn't escape controversy as another one of his decisions came under fire this morning. He decided to delay the meeting by 30 minutes because several lawmakers had called in to say they couldn't make the 9 a.m. start because of the heavy rain. But that didn't go down too well with People Power's Albert Chan, one of the lawmakers who tabled the amendments. He lashed out at the LegCo president for siding with the government by postponing the meeting to avoid what would have been the third adjournment in 3 weeks. Zhang insisted he just wanted to allow time for the rest of the legislature to make it to the chamber. But his explanation didn't go down well with the Pan-Democrats, who called on him to resign for delaying today's meeting and for abruptly halting the filibuster. Democratic Party Chairman Albert Ho had harsh words for the LegCo president.
We are very disturbed by the president's ruling made this morning, suddenly delaying the time for commencement of the meeting for half an hour. Now, we take the view that this is totally inconsistent with the existing standing order.
In a bid to speed up the arduous voting process on each of the 1,300 amendments, independent lawmakers Chim Pui-chung and Paul Tse called on Zhang this morning to simplify the procedure. Chim argued that the outcome was very predictable, since it was clear that no one was going to change their vote, so the voting process should be completed in one go. Tse noted it was a waste of time for lawmakers to have to press their buttons to vote each and every time. But Zhang rejected their demands. The Democratic Party, which has been boycotting the LegCo meeting with other Pan-Democrats, said Zhang's decision was the right one.
The High Court has adjourned until tomorrow a hearing in which Leung Kwok-hung challenged the move to end the LegCo filibuster. He's accusing LegCo President Zhang Yuxing of abusing his power and violating the Basic Law. Joanne Wong has more.
peak of Social Democrats legislator Leung Kwok-hong flashed a victory sign this afternoon as the High Court continued hearing his legal challenge to the LegCo president's decision yesterday to end the filibuster launched by radical lawmakers. Leung is seeking a judicial review of the controversial decision by Zhang Yuk-sing. LegCo Secretary General Pauline Ng was also at the court hearing. The legislative body has hired senior counsel Benjamin Yu as its legal representative. Former legislator and Democratic Party chief Martin Lee, representing Leung, referred to LegCo's rules of procedures and argued that the legislature's president can only start a voting process when no lawmaker wishes to speak. He added that Zhang's order to halt the filibuster stripped legislators of their right to amend and shelve bills. That right is enshrined in Hong Kong's mini-constitution, the Basic Law. Pro-government legislators are now voting on each of the 1,300 amendments filed by radical lawmakers in their bid to force the government to shelve the by-elections bill. Other pan-Democrats stayed away from the chamber, which means that pro-government members must maintain a quorum to avoid yet another adjournment. Justice Johnson Lam questioned whether the court hearings would affect the proceedings in LegCo. Lam said the court should not intervene in LegCo's affairs unless it's a matter of life or death. But Lee countered that this case concerns the important constitutional right of lawmakers. He pointed out that if the court eventually rules that Zhang's decision was unconstitutional, then the current voting process and its outcome would be unlawful, and so the court should step in now. Leung dropped his move for an injunction to freeze Zhang's decision because he said there was a slim chance that it would be granted. But he hoped that the judge will declare that Zhang's move to end the filibuster was unconstitutional.
Make a judgment which is in favor of the right of the freedom of speech inside the LegCo.
The court hearing is continuing. Zhuan Wang, ATV News.
On the mainland, smuggling kingpin Lai Chang-shing has been jailed for life after being found guilty of running a criminal syndicate that made billions of dollars. Lai was sentenced less than a year after his deportation from Canada and 12 years of unsuccessfully trying to win refugee status. Arthur Akilla has details.
A court in Xiamen today announced that Lai Chang-shing has been sentenced to life in prison for smuggling activities which reportedly netted him billions of dollars. The 53-year-old was also stripped of his political rights, and all his personal assets were seized after being convicted at the end of a trial which began in April. In addition, Lai was given a 15-year sentence on bribery charges in a case that implicated top-ranking military and police officials. He is allowed to appeal against the conviction and sentence. Lai was accused of running a massive smuggling ring in Xiamen in the 1990s and paying off senior officials to ignore his illegal activities. He bribed 64 officials with cash, as well as properties and vehicles worth more than 39 million yuan. Officials were entertained by him at a lavish private club known as the Red Mansion, which boasted restaurants, ballrooms, karaoke bars, cinemas, and bedrooms. His close connections with officialdom enabled him to set up networks in Xiamen and Hong Kong to smuggle cigarettes, cars, oil products, and industrial materials worth more than 27 billion yuan. Lai also evaded paying 14 million yuan in taxes. About 300 people have been punished for their involvement in his operations, 14 of them, including a former vice minister for public security and some provincial officials, were sentenced to death. The foreign ministry welcomed the outcome of Lai's case. Spokesman Hong Lei said the verdict and sentence underlined Beijing's determination to stamp out corruption. There was a diplomatic twist when Lai and his family fled to Canada in 1999 and tried to win refugee status, claiming that the charges against him were politically motivated. He argued that he would be tortured and executed if he returned to China. But Lai was extradited to China in July last year after Beijing promised Canada that he would not be executed. Canadian diplomats on the mainland say they have had regular access to Lai since he returned. Arthur Akilla, ATV News.
Sport news. In tennis, there was joy for the top seeds at the Rome Masters, although world number 1 Novak Djokovic had to replace his racket after throwing a tantrum. Karina Wu explains.
Defending champion Novak Djokovic took on Juan Monaco of Argentina and found himself in trouble, losing the first set 4-6. The world number 1 reacted by smashing his racket. But the Serb recovered, winning the next 2 sets 6-2, 6-3 to reach the last 8 of the Rome Masters.
conditions were really tough for both of us. We were trying to find a way to sustain the confidence and the focus at the important moments, and I'm just happy to get through to this one.
There was a setback for fourth-seeded Andy Murray, who was troubled by a back injury. The Scot was beaten by Frenchman Richard Gasquet, who won 6-7, 6-3, 6-2. Third-seeder Roger Federer of Switzerland won his first set against Spaniard Juan Carlos Ferrero. The Spaniard took the second, but Federer claimed the decider to advance to the quarterfinals on a 6-2, 5-7, 6-1 victory. Rafael Nadal of Spain found the going easier. The King of Clay defeated compatriot Marcel Granollers 6-1, 6-1. Karina Wu, ATV News.
The Olympic flame has been handed to British officials in a ceremony in Greece attended by London's mayor, British royalty, and superstar footballer David Beckham.
The weather was typically British, one spectator quipped, as umbrellas were employed at the start of one of the main rituals of this year's Olympics to be held in London. At the Greek stadium, which hosted the first modern games in 1896, officials prepared to hand over the Olympic flame to the British. The flame had been lit last week from the sun's rays at Olympia, site of the ancient games, and taken in a relay across Greece. The rain stopped as the flame reached the stadium, carried by Greek weightlifter Pyros Dimas and former Chinese gymnastics champion Li Ning, who lit the cauldron in dramatic fashion at the last games in Beijing. The flame was then handed to Princess Anne, head of the British delegation.
This summer, we welcome the world to London, and we look forward to the incredible events that will unfold. Join us in a sporting celebration that will capture the imagination of the world.
And with footballer David Beckham and London Mayor Boris Johnson and her entourage escorted the flame to the British Embassy in Athens. The flame arrives in Britain tonight, and a 70-day relay across the country begins tomorrow. Karina Wu, ATV News.
Now for a look at the weather forecast. Thunderstorms and heavy rain tomorrow with temperatures between 25 and 28 degrees. More of the same on Sunday, but sunny periods next week. Here's the world weather. I'll be back after the break with finance news, including a look at Facebook's IPO. Stay with us.
Coming up, financial update.
On special, buying in bulk is a really smart thing to do.
Get the latest tips from the writers of the best-selling cookbooks. Simple is simply beautiful and reasonable. Leisure Time, 4 ingredients, every Saturday night at 8:30.
Teach them well, and this will be one class they can skip for now. Sex education begins with parents.
The world's finest are here, celebrating the arrival of fabulous summer in the city of music. Music is in the air. Vienna Philharmonic's Summer Night Concert 2011, Wednesday night at 8.
Hello and welcome to the Financial Update. I'm Hailing Chan. Hong Kong shares have recorded a second consecutive weekly loss of more than 5%. That's after data was released showing home prices on the mainland fell for a second month in April, and 16 Spanish banks had their credit ratings cut. It's been a tough 2 weeks for Hong Kong's stock market. The Hang Seng Index shed 1.3% or 249 points to finish at 18,951 today. That's 5.1% for the week, the second in a row that this has happened. It was the worst fortnight for the benchmark since September last year. Turnover today was $65 billion. Chinese real estate developers were the hardest hit after data released today showed home prices on the mainland fell for a second month in April compared to a year ago. Beijing has vowed to continue its efforts to make housing more affordable by curbing speculative property demand, dashing hopes of its policies being relaxed. On the mainland, the Shanghai Composite Index was weak as well, ending 1.4% or 34 points down at 2,344. Elsewhere in the region, Japan's Nikkei slumped 3% or 265 points to close at 8,611. That's a 4-month low, making the market on track to its longest losing streak since 2001. In South Korea, the Kospi suffered its biggest daily percentage loss of the year. It was 3.4% or 62 points lower at 1,782. That wrapped up its worst trading week in 8 months. Part of the regional slump was blamed on Moody's downgrade of the credit ratings of 16 Spanish banks overnight. The agency cited Spain's slide back into recession and bad loans in the property sector for the ratings cut.
The question is whether this contagion can be stemmed and what's the response. But in the meantime, filtering across to Asia, clearly we can see in terms of financial markets, this is having a key consideration at the moment in time.
And then there was a lack of confidence in Greece that led to European markets opening lower today. Politicians in the debt-laden country are preparing for a second election in 6 weeks after they failed to agree on a coalition government that can effectively tackle its economic crisis. Speculation is rife that if the new government refuses to implement austerity measures Athens previously agreed to for bailout from the European Union and the International Monetary Fund, Greece will leave the Eurozone. Social networking website Facebook has gone public in New York in the second biggest IPO in U.S. history, with shares opening at $38 each. The company's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, remotely rang the opening bell at NASDAQ just a short while ago from Facebook's headquarters in California. It's become the first U.S. company to be worth more than $100 billion at its debut. The IPO raises Facebook $18 billion, but even though its stock is in huge demand, experts are warning investors to wait and see how it does in the long term first. Facebook's initial public offering is the most highly anticipated of the year. The social network offered 420 million shares at $38 each, making it the second biggest IPO in U.S. history after Visa. That propels the company, formed only 8 years ago, to the top ranks of corporate America.
Facebook's mission is to make the world more open and connected.
And makes 28-year-old CEO Mark Zuckerberg even richer than he already is, with a net worth of nearly $20 billion. Investors are scrambling to get their hands on some of the company's stock. Demand is so high that Facebook announced earlier this week it's selling 25% more shares than planned.
I think the short-term actions of the stock will be driven more by emotion, will be driven more by just the demand-supply economics, not enough shares going public. And the demand is several-fold. So that's what's going to drive the stock in the near term. Over the long term, however, it's going to be driven by fundamentals.
But Zuckerberg and his fellow founders are still in control of Facebook, as they have 96% of the vote. But even with 900 million users on the website, the company is facing challenges in maintaining its growth momentum.
They have to figure out creative ways to stick with the core values, but at the same time recognize that they are a growing and changing company.
Some investors are worried Facebook hasn't figured out a way to make money yet from the growing number of users who access the website on their phones. Revenue from its online advertising business has slowed in recent months, but that accounts for the bulk of its profits.
Certainly don't expect everything to be rosy. There'll be quarters where people don't like the numbers, etc. We're keeping an eye on the long term on this one.
And that's where the real test is, whether in a year or so, Facebook shares will soar to a level that shareholders expect. European shares opened lower earlier today over worries about Spanish banks having their credit ratings cut and fears of a disastrous exit from the Eurozone by Greece. Let's take a look at how those markets are doing right now. In London, the FTSE is down 64 points at 5,273. In Frankfurt, the DAX is down 27 points at 6,281. And in Paris, the CAC is trading 5 points lower at 3,006. Over in the U.S. now, the Dow Jones is up by 9 points at 12,452. Here's a look at U.S. dollar cross rates: 127 to the euro, 158 to the British pound, and 79 Japanese yen to the U.S. dollar. That's the news tonight. Thanks for watching ATV. I'm Hailing Chan. I hope you have a great weekend. Good night.
Coming up, Racing to Win. It's all over? Think again. Here comes the next gourmet challenge. Carnivore's Nightmare. Leisure Time. Man versus Food. Monday night at 8:30.
Life is beautiful regardless how you look at it. One movement, one touch. All these beautiful moments will be captured on All About Documentary, Nature's Unique Angles, every Thursday night at 10:05.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome along to Racing to Win, looking at the program at Sha Tin tomorrow, plus a few extras as well. A little preview of the lock-in stakes from the UK tomorrow night, and the two main races from Singapore. So plenty coming up on tonight's show, Brad.
Yeah, a little bit to deal with there at Sha Tin tomorrow. C+3 track firstly, and then of course how much rain will we get between now and then? Obviously there's been plenty already, so obviously wet track form needs to be on standby.
Yeah, it's a big task for us, isn't it, trying to tip you 36 hours before the meeting, because it all depends on what happens during the day, really, rain-wise.
Yeah, well, we'll try and adjust at the time, possibly, but, you know, we've got to play the hand we're dealt at the moment, and the 10 winners out there, a couple of nice jackpots, so let's hope we can do a good job.
Jackpots across the board, the TT, the 6-up, and one of the double trios as well. There's two scratchings for the card, starting in the third with number 2, Stallion Supreme. Race 3, number 2. Damewin Tiger is the replacement, and Ty England takes the ride there. And race 10, number 9, Super Marshal, it ran on Wednesday, won't be running there, and Just Fantastic will have another crack. So Just Fantastic is the call-up. All right, and what's been a devastating week on the stock markets, let's hope we can try and help you get something back here tomorrow.
Yeah, well, the races has been a lot of outsiders too, so favourite backers have been copying it as well. Champion Ranger, and this trialled well. What I like about him, he's quite robust, strong individual. I think the Dennis Yip generally, you know, he's not easy on them going to their debut, but this horse is holding his condition together.